Hi everybody. Today I'm going to talk about The Chalice and the Blade by Eisler, Betty Friedan, Beyond Gender, Ben Goleman, Working with Emotional Intelligence, and I'll finish up with Death of the Liberal Class. But I'm going to start with a video by Anne Marie Slaughter, who is the president of New America. She got a BA from Princeton in 80, a master's in philosophy from Oxford in 82, JD from Harvard 85, a doctorate in philosophy and international relations from Oxford in 92. She was the dean of the Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs at Princeton 2002 to 2009. She was also director of public policy at the State Department 2009 to 2011 under Hillary Clinton. So obviously, this woman has many MBAs, many PhDs, a very, very impressive resume. But where's the implementation? Where she's got a lot of speeches and everything, but they got to start putting their money where their mouth is. So listen to this. This is a TED Talk. Everybody's doing a TED Talk.
So my moment of truth did not come all at once. In 2010, I had the chance to be considered for promotion from my job as Director of Policy Planning at the U.S. State Department. This was my moment to lean in, to push myself forward for what are really only a handful of the very top foreign policy jobs. And I had just finished a big 18-month project for Secretary Clinton successfully, and I knew I could handle a bigger job. The woman I thought I was would have said yes. But I had been commuting for 2 years between Washington and Princeton, New Jersey, where my husband and my 2 teenage sons lived, and it was not going well. I tried on the idea of eking out another 2 years in Washington, or maybe uprooting my sons from their school and my husband from his work and asking them to join me. But deep down, I knew that the right decision was to go home, even if I didn't fully recognize the woman who was making that choice. That was a decision based on love and responsibility. I couldn't keep watching my oldest son make bad choices without being able to be there for him when and if he needed me. But the real change came more gradually. Over the next year, while my family was righting itself, I started to realize that even if I could go back into government, I didn't want to. I didn't want to miss the last 5 years that my sons were at home. I finally allowed myself to accept what was really most important to me, not what I was conditioned to want, or maybe what I conditioned myself to want. And that decision led to a reassessment of the feminist narrative that I grew up with and have always championed.
Okay, I'm going to stop her there for one moment. I just want to say, this was 2009, 2011. This is why I'm trying to get out of Spain alive. The lawyers are hanging me out to dry. This I did yesterday. All of the different actors involved in covering up everything that's going on in the courts, whether it be the cover-up for violence against women or children, or the harassment of the black men in the penal code. This is mainly the black men. They do go after the women. That's more to get the boyfriend. So, I have a huge problem with this. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life was leave my children in Spain. And I stayed for a month before I could go and personally say goodbye to them, because the courts, everybody had, it totally removed them from me, and I basically wasn't allowed to see them. And I had to leave them. And she left her children for 2 years and got all sorts of, delinquency and everything like that. I haven't seen my children for 13 years, and I'm very, very, very proud of them, because I've had to come back to Washington to do a very difficult job that nobody wants to do here, particularly hypocrites like Anne Marie Slaughter. She has this book, Unfinished Business. This is coming from that. Women, men, work, family. She's got a cushy little job over at New America. And in fact, New America, I've applied for jobs over there, so they're looking at lawsuits under discrimination, gender, age, discrimination. See, this is the thing. Most of my rhetoric, a lot of my rhetoric, is the same as Anne Marie Slaughter. Yet, I'm sitting here on unemployment, been on minimum wage jobs since I've come back to the United States. Why? Because all the jobs are being given to the old-time game players, black, brown, white. Many of the women, they're getting favored, and they're not doing a good job. They're screwing up the entire world. Now, she was director of public policy at the State Department. I got a whole case against the State Department. The State Department from top to bottom needs to be drained. And quite a few of them need to go to prison for their incompetence. The thing about governance, the first thing about governance is making civil servants and, the big wigs like this one understand that they work for the people. So anyway, let's continue on. It just, when I hear this kind of stuff from, these people, these parasites, these are the real parasites on society, not the women who stay home with their children and take care of their children. And you really want to produce a society where women are equal and free, you need to let them stay home with their children when they're young, respect that work, and let them back into labor forces, or start a company like I had wanted to do. Instead of, if they want to start a company, kill them. If they want the 100 million that Zuckerberg's getting, Foursquare is getting, and everything like that, just throw them under the bus. Equality for women is never going to come as long as women who try not back into the workplace are denigrated, are bullied, are marginalized, are ostracized. In my case, they missed their mark and they had some bad luck, because, I've been studying all of this stuff. Somebody even said, oh, you sound like Rianne Eisler. I said, I know. Same stuff. But is anybody giving me a book deal? Is anybody giving me JDs or anything like that? Michelle Obama, she got an honorary doctorate, JD or something, after she was first lady. I'm like, why? The woman should be ashamed of herself. Why didn't she challenge the new Jim Crow? And you give her another honorary degree? The whole thing is crazy. Absolutely crazy.
I am still completely committed to the cause of male-female equality. But let's think about what that equality really means and how best to achieve it. I always accepted the idea that the most respected and powerful people in our society are men at the top of their careers, so that the measure of male-female equality ought to be how many women are in those positions.
I'm going to stop her again. This is once again the criteria that they're giving of equality for women, not how much your rights are being respected in the courts, because believe me, you're being raked over the coals, particularly, in custody battles and everything like that, because if you're defrauded of all of your assets, your children are taken away from you, you're thrown out on the street, just like a slave. This is what I'm I'm contending against the Spanish judicial system that basically, and all the family courts, because they see women in the homes as parasites who've been living off of their husbands. 90% of children are handed over to fathers when they ask. It drops down to 70% when it's sexual and physical abuse. Thank God. But where's the equality there? And mothers are the primary health givers. Their children are taken from them, their assets are taken from them, their homes are taken from them, and they're thrown on the street with nothing. And they have to pay alimony to the husband who got the kids. That's why the husbands are going after the kids, because it gives them money. You know, so this hypocrisy really is angering. And see, this is the kind of hypocrisy that everybody is getting, and why everybody's getting so angry. You know, with all of these bigwigs who sit in their ivory towers with these TED Talks.
Prime ministers, presidents, CEOs, directors, managers, Nobel laureates, leaders. I still think we should do everything we possibly can to achieve that goal. But that's only half of real equality. And I now think we're never going to get there unless we recognize the other half. I suggest that real equality, full equality, does not just mean valuing women on male terms. It means creating a much wider range of equally respected choices for women and for men. And to get there, we have to change our workplaces, our policies, and our culture. In the workplace, real equality means valuing family just as much as work, and understanding that the two reinforce each other. As a leader and as a manager, I have always acted on the mantra, if family comes first, work does not come second. Life comes together. If you work for me and you have a family issue, I expect you to attend to it. And I'm confident, and my confidence has always been borne out, that the work will get done, and done better. Workers who have a reason to get home to care for their children or their family members are more focused, more efficient, more results focused. And breadwinners who are also caregivers have a much wider range of experiences and contacts. Think about a lawyer who spends part of his time at school events for his kids talking to other parents. He's much more likely to bring in new clients for his firm than a lawyer who never leaves his office.
Okay, again, I'm going to stop her there. Once again, money. So, oh, he can bring in more clients this way. It's not about, you know, taking better care of the children or anything like that. It's about bringing in more clients and bringing in more money. Another thing, you know, if a worker, you know, has a child who's sick and can go home and they can do that. But if you're working in a chaotic, absolutely chaotic, where everybody's bullying everybody, everybody's denigrating everybody, intellectual property theft is rampant, because that's one of the huge problems in academia. I mean, they're paranoid about it. One time I was typing up something, I forget what her name was, from a book, because I was quoting it. And I was actually putting it on some comments on LinkedIn, because it was pertinent to that. And I mean, I got an email right away from this woman, or a message through LinkedIn. How dare you? How dare you? This is intellectual property theft. This is plagiarizing. And I said, lady, it's not plagiarizing. I'm quoting you. I mean, it was off the top. I said, I'm quoting you, and believe me, I'm going to be quoting all of you guys. All they care about is getting their new book published, or giving a speech, or getting a cushy job, and being a hypocrite.
And caregiving itself develops patience. a lot of patience,
Yeah.
and empathy, creativity,
Yeah.
resilience,
Yeah.
adaptability. Those are all attributes that are ever more important in a high-speed, horizontal, networked global economy.
But they're denigrated.
The
and spit
best
on.
companies actually know this. The companies that win awards for workplace flexibility in the United States include some of our most successful corporations. And a 2008 national study on the changing workforce showed that employees in flexible and effective workplaces are more engaged. Deep thing. When my family first started going to Italy, we used to live using the warmth of a family lunch. Now when we go, fewer and fewer businesses close for siesta, reflecting the advance of global corporations and 24-hour competition. So making a place for those we love is actually a global impact.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop her there. The whole thing about Italy, because yes, the culture has changed. Spain, Greece, Italy, and even Turkey, all of the southern European, and even the northern African. I mean, there's a lot of parallels with what you'll see in Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and everything like that with southern Europe. But Spain was the same thing. You had this siesta. In fact, when my ex-husband and I got married in Spain in 91. In August 91, I had lived there for a year. And the idea was that after we got married, I would look for a job. And of course, that's why he started looking to leave again. And one of the reasons why I agreed was I was talking to this young woman, and she said, oh yeah, well, let's see, we come in the office around 9 o'clock, then we go for our coffee, then up backstairs till 11:30, then the pinchito with the cerveza downstairs again, and then around 3 o'clock we go for lunch till 5 o'clock, but then of course they have to stay till 10 and 11 o'clock at night. And I said, that's crazy. I'd rather work my way through, going up and down the stairs. You can't get anything done. And also, what if you have a family? The husband and wife are staying till 10, 11 o'clock at night? I mean, that's worse than the United States. We already have enough problems, in Northern Europe or the United States or others, of children not being, they're being abandoned. My God, how many kids do I see walking the streets, with their school pack and everything like that are too young to be walking the streets alone. So this is a huge problem. Anyway, this is just another one of the big wig, who are blah, 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 blah in Washington. And New America, they're looking at lawsuit on fraud. All of them. Because you go onto their website, and Bretton Woods too. Oh yeah, all of the promises, everything that they say is wonderful. I'll get into that with the death of the liberal class at the end. So let me go to the Chalice and the Blade with Rianne Eisler. So introduction, the Chalice and the Blade. This book opens a door. The key to unlock it was fashioned by many people in many books, and it will take many more to fully explore the vast vistas that lie behind it. But even opening this door a crack reveals fascinating new knowledge about our past and a new view of our potential future. For me, the search for this door has been a lifelong quest. Very early in my life, I saw that what people in different cultures consider given, just the way things are, is not the same everywhere. I also very early developed a passionate concern about the human situation. When I was very small, the seemingly secure world I had known was shattered by the Nazi takeover of Austria. I watched as my father was dragged away, and after my mother miraculously obtained his release from the Gestapo, my parents and I fled for our lives. Through that flight, first to Cuba and finally to the United States, I experienced 3 different cultures, each with its own varieties. It also began to ask many questions that to me are not and never have been abstract. Why do we hunt and persecute each other? Why is our world so full of man's infamous humanity to man and to women? How can human beings be so brutal to their own kind? What is it that chronically tilts us towards cruelty rather than kindness? Toward war rather than peace? Toward destruction rather than actualization? Of all life forms on this planet, only we can plant and harvest fields, compose poetry and music, seek truth and justice, teach a child to read and write, or even laugh and cry. Because our unique ability to imagine new realities and realize these through ever more advanced technologies, we are quite literally partners in our own evolution. And yet this same wondrous species of ours now seems bent on putting an end not only to its own evolution, but to that of most life on our globe, threatening our planet with ecological catastrophe or nuclear annihilation. As time went on, as I pursued my professional studies, had children, and increasingly focused my research and writing on the future, my concerns broadened and deepened. Like many people, I'm convinced that we are rapidly approaching an evolutionary crossroad that never before has the course we chose been so critical. But what course should we take? I'm going to scroll down. Okay, since going backwards is not the answer, how do we move forward? A great deal is being written about a new age, a major and unprecedented cultural transformation. But in practical terms, what does this mean? A transformation for what to what? In terms of both our everyday lives and our cultural evolution, what precisely would be different or even possible in the future? Is a shift from a system leading to chronic wars, social injustice, and ecological imbalance to one of peace, social justice, and ecological balance a realistic possibility? Most important, what changes in social structure would make such a transformation possible? Okay, let me scroll down again. Okay, human possibilities, two alternatives. Just as in Columbus's time, this discovery that the earth is not flat made it possible to find an amazing new world that had been there all the time. These archaeologists' discoveries, deriving from what the British archaeologist James Mellart calls a veritable archaeological revolution, opened up the amazing world of our hidden past. Let's see. They reveal a long period of peace and prosperity when our social, technological, and cultural evolution moved upward. Many thousands of years when all the basic technologies on which civilization is built were developed in societies that were not male-dominated, violent, and hierarchical. Scroll down. It is, of course, makes eminent sense that the earliest depictions of divine power in human form should have been female rather than male. One result in re-examining human society from a gender holistic perspective has been a new theory of cultural evolution. This theory, which I call cultural transformation theory, proposes that underlying the great surface diversity of human culture are two basic models of society. The first, which I call the dominator model, is what is popularly termed either patriarchy or matriarchy, the ranking of one half of humanity over the other. The second, in which social relations are primarily based on the principle of linking rather than ranking, may best be described as the partnership model. In this model, beginning with the most fundamental differences in our species between male and female, diversity is not equated with either inferiority or superiority. Cultural transformation theory further proposes that the original direction in the mainstream of our cultural evolution was toward partnership, but that, following a period of chaos and almost total cultural disruption, there occurred a fundamental social shift. The greater availability of data on Western societies, due to the ethnocentric focus of Western social science, makes it possible to document this shift in more detail through the analysis of Western cultural evolution. However, there are also indications that this change in direction from a partnership to a dominator model was roughly paralleled in other parts of the world. And she's right. I mean, I've been looking at, sorry, it's really hot in here. I've been looking at, all of these different things, all of the different social sciences, just like Eisler. I was driven from my home by the Spanish Nazis, Franquistas, if you want to call them. History repeats itself. But once again, Rianne Eisler, she's got a cushy job, she's got lots of books and everything like that. She's a lawyer. Why isn't she going to the international courts and submitting this stuff to the international courts? I mean, I keep on, going back and back. Now I'm going to read from Betty Friedan, Beyond Gender. Now, Betty Friedan, this goes back to Anne Slaughter. Anne Slaughter, all of the rhetoric and everything like that, she sold out, just like everybody else did. And Betty Friedan, this is 1981. This is 2013. We're still talking about the same stuff. We're still going around and around. Defining a paradigm shift, because this is what everybody's saying. We need a paradigm shift. We need a paradigm shift. Here's your blueprint. Not difficult. Really not difficult. It's going to be a lot of work, but most of all the argumentation's done. Not difficult. So why am I not getting any help? Because nobody wants to rock the boat. Everybody wants to give speeches, everybody wants to produce books and publish books, but nobody wants to rock the boat. So, Betty Friedan, defining a paradigm shift. I'm having fruit and cottage cheese for lunch with a new friend at some innocuous spa lunch place on Madison Avenue, near her bank. This is why they want the high power jobs, because then they get to go to all of these nice, restaurants. That's the only thing. She happens to be the top woman at her bank, no other woman anywhere near her level, and she gets lonesome at lunchtime. The guys at her level at her bank all go out together. The men at any level don't have lunch with the women anymore. Some new kind of sex discrimination? Oh no, she says. It's just that there's so much talk about sexual harassment suits these days. No one knows what it is or isn't, so they figure why risk it? I want to stop here for a moment. When I was living in Europe in the 90s and the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal came out and everything, and I, told people, I was an intern for Senator Bennett Johnston. And they said, oh, you were an intern. I said, the only thing that I opened was mail. And, I really resented it. And everybody goes on about, oh, these poor young women, they're flattered and they're, seduced by these powerful men and all the glamour and glitz and everything like that. I was 17 when I came here. I was around it all. And when I left, I guess I was 24 or something like that. No, I never, and even being back, okay, I'm an old lady now. So, not prime meat in the cesspool of Washington these days. They all want cute young things that are stupid, that'll just hang on their arm and giggle and laugh, whatever stupid thing that they say. That's why they want the young kids. And, they've opened up, the gays have theirs, and that's why they all want young kids, and one of the reasons why us old ladies are ostracized, and old men as well. So, this whole thing, excuse me, and particularly coming back, maybe I just didn't see it when I was so young, or I don't think it was as prevalent, But my lord, the way that women throw themselves at men, of course they think they're hitting on them. I mean, my God. If I was a man, I think, well, yeah, this woman is throwing herself at me, why not? And they all do it. And they all do it to get the jobs and everything like that. I mean, my God, one of the managers where I'm working at, we could never figure out how she got the job until the owner came down and she was almost sitting in his lap. And then we all all of the women looked at each other and said, well, now we understand. The woman has nothing in her brain. She has no experience. She has no idea what she's doing. Yet she keeps the cushy job when the more experienced person, and she's black and Latina, the more experienced person and the person who's competent is the hostess, because she'll stand up to the owner who's only looking, this is all the restaurant owners. All they care about is, buying drinks and everything like that and getting the cute young things to go home with. And I wouldn't have that. I wouldn't put up with it. And of course, so that's why I'm sitting here unemployed. If I'm lucky, I'll get a minimum wage job, even though I'm more qualified than this one or more qualified than anybody in this town. So I'll continue. The same summer week in 1994, I see an item in the New York Times that in the last 5 years, there's been a significant drop in income, nearly 20% of college-educated white American men. See, men are being opted out so that women can opt in, and that's part of the reason that they're getting pissed off. Juan Williams writes about that as well. I'll talk another day about that. Not minority, high school educated or blue collar, but white management men. The masters of the universe. See, everybody wants to be a master of the universe. And they crash and burn. And it is hitting mainly men in their 40s. No such decline is taking place among women. Of course, women on the whole are still not making as much money as men. And that's because women are having to be caregivers, take care of their children, so that when we get back into the workforce, you're given a minimum wage job instead of a six-figure salary job, even though you're just as competent as the six-figure job. That's why we're making less money. Let's see. But more women are coming out of professional programs into management jobs. Managerialism. And they're creating havoc. Because most women are not good leaders. Most women, always I've preferred the company of men because their conversations have some substance. And usually, unless they're talking about, getting laid or any of that crap. But any of their intellectual conversations have substance. I mean, with me, with all of the domestic violence activists and all of the other victims, she told